Just repeat that part about them charging you with...
Homicide. Okay.
For what? So the cops charge you with homicide for what?
So our daughter passed from sepsis, which is a very quick and deadly illness. And the cops came in and interviewed, and within a couple of days they told us they were investigating us for homicide. We were still reeling from the sudden loss of our daughter, and it was just absolutely flooring that this could happen to us. My husband hadn't even been home for 4 hours before this, and yet they were trying to charge him with murder. So a lot of things happened after there. There was a lot of events that began to cascade. One thing that I became aware of was that the resuscitation protocols at the hospital had not been followed correctly. And as affidavits and materials started to come out, I realised that the hospital had been putting forward false information and misreporting the symptoms that our daughter had experienced. And this is what had cascaded into a homicide investigation, because what I believe was the hospital covering up for their mistakes and trying to pin it on us, the innocent family. There was a lot of attrition that happened over the next few months, some of which I cannot speak about at this current time. But one of the things I became aware of was that defibrillation is so important for cardiac arrest. Yeah, I see heads nodding over here. And I realised that the hospital hadn't done that. And so we went about subpoenaing information to support our case, some of which was suppressed and hidden from us. But enough came forward for us to really learn that the doctors had misrepresented facts and had leveraged the police system to keep the heat off of them and put it on my innocent family. So this investigation, it actually rolled on for 14 months, in which time we investigated the hospital. We started hearing stories from witnesses that the police were interviewing, that there had been breaches in their protocol, there had been witnesses that were being tampered with, that there was evidence that was being omitted, and we started to investigate the police. I think that's where it hit a bit of a tipping point. And the police realised that if they didn't take us down first, that we were going to come after them. I'm not anti-police, guys. I know in my journey I have met a lot of wonderful police officers. I know that there are police officers here today who are here to maintain the peace. So shout out to all those who are doing the right thing in government, who are trying to protect us and our rights.
She's not anti-police, she's anti-government corruption. And these are government departments that are taking the children. Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the law. I became very involved in law a little bit later on in my story. And the more that I learn about them, the more I actually love the laws of this land. They're very fair and they're very good. It is the people who hold authority who misuse the authority that they've been given and who disregard the laws and the human rights that are set down for this people. That is what I am against. All right, so fast forward 14 months. We think that the case is going to drop. We have a private investigator on our case who comes back and says the police are not active, just bide your time. It looks like things are going to drop. Things didn't drop. A couple of weeks before the arrest, we had a prowler turn up in our backyard that we were pretty certain was connected to everything that had been going on, although we weren't entirely sure what that was about. So come the 7th of February last year, we were surprised very early in the morning with police running, raiding our house and smashing down our front door, arresting us for murder. Once in the watch house, it was revealed to us that the autopsy, which had been held back for 14 months, not only showed sepsis, but an underlying, rapid onset, undiagnosed leukemia. Yeah. So our daughter had an unknown cancer. It had made her more susceptible to sepsis, and for it being a very severe and sudden and fast-acting case, it was something that was entirely out of our hands. An absolute freakish anomaly that we should never ever have been pursued for, that nobody should have ever misrepresented, especially not medical professionals, and for which we never ever ever should have been arrested. We also found out that a little story that had been invented during the investigation had come back to the surface. So this story was that because we had not registered our 6th child, Diana, who had passed away, that there was a theory that we had another child, a 7th child, a fake child, a child we never had. And that because nobody could see this child toddling around, we must have done something to this fake child.
So this is CPS doing this?
This was the police. Yeah, CPIU. Yeah. CPIU is the Child Protection Investigation Unit. So they're connected to child protection.
So all of a sudden you have a government branch called Child Protection Investigation Unit making accusations that this woman has had a 7th kid, which she never had. They're trying to set things up, frame things badly.
Absolutely. And what's worse was that they had spoken to everybody in our community from the beautiful Mackay, and everybody had said, no, she was not pregnant, we'd be able to tell. I think you'd be able to tell, right? And so everybody in the community had said no, but one person in the beginning had falsified a tale. And that one person caused our family havoc. Later on, when I got to see my brief of evidence, I found out that 2 more family members had come forward and created false stories about a fake baby in order to help the police bring about a false arrest. This is really scary when you are facing life in jail, 24 years behind bars for something you didn't do, to think that people out there will lie and that the police were perhaps involved in coordinating that, and that the police went looking for people to fabricate that evidence against us, is a very, very scary notion for the justice system of this country. And what is scary about it is that if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. So we found out in the watch house that they were digging up our backyard and that they found a baby dress buried under our banana trees. Yeah, who said dingo? Thank you, yes. So they were trying to substantiate the claim to this 7th baby that never ever existed. And fortunately, I was blessed to meet some amazing advocates very, very early in our journey who helped me to understand what the system was really about, that they were out to build a case against me, whether there was a case there or not, and that it was really important for me to gather my evidence, keep my ear to the ground, to talk to everyone, to build strength in the community, and to do what I had to do to protect myself. So from right there in the watch house, I was able to call my lawyer in, tell him where he could find the witness who saw the prowler in our backyard, tell him where he could find recorded evidence that the police absolutely knew there was no 7th baby, and then I asked some very, very hard questions. The story about the baby dress got completely hidden from that point onward. The police were caught out. They hid it. Nothing turned up in the brief of evidence. When I asked prosecutions for it under their duty of disclosure, it never ever came out. I am now pursuing CCTV footage that I think was pivotal to the case, and it is still being suppressed and hidden from me. They were doing everything in their power to shut me up and put me away because they knew that they were at risk of being exposed. And I was able to do that from the watch house, where they then asserted a lot of pressure on me and placed very, very strict, harsh bail conditions on me. All right, now comes the fun part. Time to face the courts. I became uncomfortable with my lawyer. I asked him to withdraw. I stood up and self-represented for myself, pulling some big human rights in court, for which I was arrested for failing to appear in the courtroom. I spent another 40 days in jail. I had an amazing friend step forward and bring a habeas corpus to the Supreme Court, which overturned the magistrate's ruling, saying that he had acted both unlawfully and outside of his jurisdiction. And we landed a beautiful landmark precedent in the Supreme Court. But that's not all. That's where the fun did not end just there. I continued to self-represent. I continued to bring forward the truth. I continued to be bold in court. I continued to investigate the hospital, the police, and others involved. And in September, I exposed that corruption in court. Two days later, I was arrested again for the third time last year. CPIU conducted the first and only ever phone check under bail conditions, found that I had spoken to who they claimed was a Crown witness, who never was a Crown witness, and he locked me up. He said he was exercising his jurisdiction and his discretion, and he wrote an affidavit to try and keep me in jail that was both defamatory and engaged in perjury. We proved that in front of the court when I was let out because I had secretly recorded that arrest. And I had put my human rights information on the police file only 7 days earlier so that the claims he made about me being sovereign citizen were absolutely refuted on his own police files. Thank you. It was a really big journey, and it was a very refining journey for me. It taught me a lot about what people can do, what people are capable of doing, but it also taught me that there are good people out there. There is community. There are people who are fighting. There are people who are knowledgeable. There are people who are standing up. And that when we stand together and when we are united and when we do not give in to the narrative for fear, we can conquer anything. Thank you. On the 3rd of April this year, the murder charge was discontinued. Shortly after that, I had a breach of bail withdrawn because, well, they said they didn't have the CCTV footage available. However, it was actually because we submitted 5 affidavits proving that the claim never existed. And then once bail conditions dropped on me, I found the Crown witness they said I spoke to, who came forward and said that she had spoken to the the charging officer that day, and that he had admitted her testimony from the QP9. And so we put that forward as well, and that charge was withdrawn. Thank you. On the 27th of August, two more breaches of bail were withdrawn, and a failure to register a birth certificate was dismissed because of an inability to bring forward enough evidence to reach the benchmark for beyond reasonable doubt. So on that day, I successfully had overturned 6 out of 6 charges against myself. So my message to you is be educated, be aware, be awake, be united, and never, ever, ever stand down when you are pressured, when you live true to what you know is true and correct, good will always win.
What a powerful woman. To have that happen to your own family, keep charging forward like her, that's one thing. The best part about it is her and this other woman that was unable to talk due to legal advice because of the Child Protection Services. They're going to take it to them after this finishes. We're going after CPS, and everybody here needs to help us do that. It's going to cost money, it's going to cost legal teams, it's going to cost a lot of energy on the ground those days outside the courtroom when we get to that day and CPS is in front of us for a change. The whole streets need to be filled outside that courtroom so they know where they're here and that we're one together.